Hi, this is your host Sapnil Bhartiya and welcome to TFR Let's Talk. Today we have with us Ajit Sancheti, General Manager of Falcon Connection Sim at CrowdStrike. Ajit, it's great to have you on the show.
Hi, Swapnil. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me on.
It is my pleasure to host you here. The interesting thing is in today's world is that security is no longer an afterthought. It's no longer someone else's problem. It is moving in developers' pipeline. There are a lot of cultural shift that is happening in this space, which also means that company like CrowdStrike and other, when they're playing a very critical role. It's not the fear mongering. It's more active. So before we dive into the specific discussion that we are going to have around SIEM and all those things, I would like to hear about CrowdStrike. How do you see CrowdStrike into this modern cloud-centric, API-centric world?
Oh, absolutely. So CrowdStrike started out with by defining the category of EDR, Endpoint Detection and Response. If you think back many years ago, actually not too long ago, people were just looking at antivirus as their key solution for endpoint protection. CrowdStrike came back and said, no, there's a better way for us to understand, detect, prevent breaches, and not just prevent breaches, but also respond to threats as they happen. And that defined the category of EDR. And the company's concept has been based on machine learning, AI, things that people talk about now. That was the history of the company. That was the basis of how the company was started, which really, the architecture was thought through to be future proof. And I say that not lightly, only because as you look at what all the company has done in the last few years, you look at endpoint, identity security, cloud security, data protection. Now, as you look at next generation SIEM, we're using the same core architecture. We're using the same core endpoint agent. We're gone with a single agent solution. So many ways, what we started out to do almost 12 years ago, we're continuing to build on in a way that it solves here for one core reason. We're here to prevent breaches and help keep our customers secure.
Now, when we talk about SIEM and just for audience, security information and event management, talk a bit about what kind of adoption, what kind of activities are you seeing in this space? And when we do look at SIEM, is it about the tools? Is it about technology? Is it about practices? It is about culture.
Great question. I think you just encompassed everything that people should care about when they think about a SIEM, right? So when SIEM first started, in the mid 2000s, and Gartner coined the term security, incident, and event management, it was about trying to help enterprises understand if they've been compromised, understand if they've been breached. So you took a tool that was a very good log management tools. Many of the log management tools started to talk about, okay, let's aggregate this information and answer the question, have I been breached? Really, at that time, the core concern was APTs, advanced persistent threats. And so the tools were being built to help enterprises understand it. So really, it was not a security solution that was, the SIEM was not, the logs management solutions were not really built for security, but they did a really good job of helping enterprises detect threats and help them understand the nature of the threat, answer the question, have I been breached? And help them figure out, okay, now that I know how I've been breached, they went off and figured out how to solve the problem and how to prevent breaches in the future. And so that's where security, the SIEM started. But now, and the reason why this is an important inflection point for SIEMs is because if you look at it, the average time for a breach has gone down to 79 minutes. In fact, CrowdStrike saw the fastest breach last year, where a compromise of a system and lateral movement happened in just a little over 2 minutes. Think about that, right? 2 minutes. How quickly can an enterprise security team respond if the tools that they are using have to index the data, index the logs, understand the nature of the threat and give you the answers? Those won't work. So now when you look at a SIEM, you have to start thinking, okay, what do I need in the current environment to prevent breaches? And that's why the new SIEMs have some basic core tenets, and I can talk about that to really tell you what the SIEM is and why it's been built. I would just say, if you ask me why does the SIEM not work, the current SIEM not work, it's the data paradox. And by data paradox, what I mean is the challenge of being able to ingest the data that you need to ingest to understand the nature of the threat, both from a cost and a complexity perspective. Ingesting data is tough, and the cost of ingestion is not linear. It actually tends to be nonlinear. And to solve all of those problems, you start thinking about, okay, how do I do that in a new environment?
When we talk about security, nowadays security is also not that simple. There are so many moving parts there. Security can also be about just human error, misconfiguration. Security can also be about bugs. Security can also be about active attacks where you have to stay, gate and everything sealed. Uh, so when we look at security, it does look like, hey, this is an area which is scary for developers. They slow them down. But the way I look at security, and I talk to a lot of security vendors, is that actually having players like you build guardrails around developers. So it actually creates a very innovative, I think, environment for them, because they do know that they don't have to go to security folks after the fact, and they may stop it, they may slow it. You folks sometimes create, those kind of guidance, guardrails. So can you talk about not the scary, gloomy, dark side of security, but the innovative side of security, and and if you can also talk it in the context of SIEM.
Let me answer that in the context of the SIM, right? One of the challenges has been is we do the analysis on a SIM, and then we have to go and take action on a security platform. So CrowdStrike has a Falcon platform, which was a security platform, but you had to do the analysis on a SIM. What we're saying now is you have to change that paradigm. The SIM and the security platform have to be one. And the reason why you're doing that is because now all the data resides in one place. Why should you have to take the data from one place where you collected all the logs and push them into into another platform? Because that takes time. The data needs to be indexed and things like that. So what we're doing is, especially for enterprises, the way we think about it is you have to get the data where it is, and so you can do the analysis where that's happening. Now, of course, CrowdStrike as a company has a lot of products, right? I talked about endpoint identity, data protection, cloud, and threat intel. But there's also other data sources you want: email, SASE, whatever it is that you want to bring in. So what we're saying is take all that data, bring it into one place. And if you make that frictionless, right, make it easy. Whatever first-party data that CrowdStrike generates, whatever third-party you're bringing in, make it easy for enterprises. Don't make it a cost question, right? That's how they can start to build confidence. And like to your point, it may be developers, it may be the security teams, it may be security architects. If the data is all in one place and it's not you're not making cost decisions, but you're making security decisions, then you've already given them a sense of confidence. Because once you have the data in one place, you can start to leverage AI. Now you can do AI-powered threat detection. You can do AI-powered analyst investigations. Give you an example. I see a threat. We are doing an investigation of the incident. AI can help me understand, what other assets in the organization may be impacted by the same threat. It may not be obvious, but AI can go in there and say, okay, you've got all these other assets that have the same threat profile. Have you looked at it? Once you get that, you can start to say, okay, can I generate an AI-powered workflow? Meaning, can I now start to say, okay, if this kind of a threat happens, what has been done, what can be done that prevents the threat from propagating, but also keeping the enterprise business continuous? Remember, I talked about the 2-minute compromise and lateral movement time. You want all of this to happen at that pace. So what we're saying is, you get the data in quickly, be able to do the instant investigation with the power of tools, do the response actions at that same speed. Now, you're not looking at a separate tool or anything like that. Building all of that in one place makes it very, very effective for organizations. We're building more complex tools. We're building more complex software packages. But I'm not going to stop and slow down my innovation because I'm afraid. And security shouldn't be about afraid. Security should be about confidence. We're trying to give enterprises the confidence that we can help them and protect them when bad things do happen and prevent the breach. And that has to be the shift. To your point, I mean, I agree with you, right? You shouldn't be selling fear. You should be selling confidence.
And do you see that these kind of positive changes are happening in the industry? And if yes, what role is CrowdStrike playing in becoming a catalyst to the change?
It is happening. I think that you will notice more and more people are talking with confidence about how to take action. The threat profile is not changing. It's not changing. In fact, it's getting worse day by day by day. But the fact that we have more effective tools, the fact that we are able to leverage AI, the fact that we are able to build an automation and make it granular in the way you respond to threats gives enterprises the ability to say, oh, I see a threat, but I've been able to take an action. I've been able to limit things like the blast radius. I've been able to get my company to do the business it's in rather than worry about the security, the implications. So We are doing things like that. The security ecosystem is doing things around that. We the thing we have to remember is that we have to leverage the new tools only because the attackers are themselves leveraging new tools. So AI is not just the purview of an enterprise or a business or a vendor. AI is available to attackers too. So what they can do is they can take the latest Microsoft Patch Tuesday uh, critical vulnerabilities that are announced, build an exploit in a matter of hours, and upload it or sell it on the gray market. Have somebody use it against an enterprise. Less than a day, maybe in a few hours. If you had to take the old tools and do it slowly, it would take a long time. But the fact that we have access to the same tools, it means that we can also build responses quicker. So I'm not going to say that everything is changed perfectly for the future, but what I think we should all feel confident about is we have the tools to respond as quickly. To your specific question about CrowdStrike, we're already starting to see the next-gen SIM being adopted by many, many enterprises. And it's not just the large enterprises with the resources. We're seeing it even in the smallest organizations. This is something they couldn't do in the past, but now you can do it. Because the tools, and when you have capabilities that you build into the tools, the analysts don't have to go and do all the manual searching. The tools do the manual searching for you. You're just making what I call the executive decision on how to respond. So you can be a small organization, you can leverage the same tools that a big organization is leveraging. And that's one of the things that we're all doing is democratizing the ability to use sophisticated tools.
And when we're talking about sophisticated tools, how sophisticated these tools are getting? Can you talk about, are you seeing the next generation of CM already here? Or you're saying, hey, those things are in the pipeline. Where are we heading?
Let's use the example of a SIM again, right? So there's three components. I classify it as three big components to a SIM. First, getting all the data in, right? Second is being able to do an investigation. And the third is being able to take a response action. And in all of these places, you're going to see automation and AI integrated. I'll start with how do I get data in? You get data from different vendors into a SIM, and all of them have their own formats. You may call an IP address as IP address. Somebody else may call it IP underscore I underscore P address. Everybody has it differently. Imagine this organization with one or two security people trying to get the data in. How will they parse it? How will they make sure that they got the right parsers? All of that's going to be difficult. You can actually get AI parsers that understand and say, oh, that looks like an IP address. That looks like an email address. All of that automatically. Get the data in, parse it, normalize it, make it available for doing sophisticated analysis. In the analysis phase, you start in the incident investigation phase, it starts to tell you, okay, these entities are related, like I mentioned a few minutes ago. It starts to give you more and more insights on an incident that you manually had to go search for in the past. That's the second phase, and that AI is doing really well. The third is being able to take response actions. In the past, when people talked about, there's another component of AI, of SIM, where we call security a SOAR platform, taking automated responses. People really didn't take automated responses. They wrote good workflows, but they had to have a human always make that decision because they were concerned it would make the wrong decision. AI does that for you. Now, you may still choose to be making decisions in some cases where you want to decide how to respond, and some cases not how to respond or manually take an action. You can still do that, but the systems itself are getting better. So I'll be honest, this is a big change for a SIM from the old legacy SIMs to now. The amount of AI that's being integrated into it, the amount of automation that's being built into it, the amount that the human is getting the information. So now it's not just a human making these choices. You're combining people, you're combining data, you're combining AI, you're combining workflow automation, all in one platform. So you start to respond at the pace of what the attackers are trying to breach into your network. Again, this is going to be a race, right? You get better, they get better. You get better, they get better. But ultimately, you want to be better than they are. And these tools help you do that.
As we're talking about, the next generation kind of thing, I also want to talk about one of the hottest technologies these days. At least it's the hottest buzzword. There are mixed reports about, hey, you know what? The phase of Gen AI is over, all those things, but it is playing a very critical role, at least this moment. What kind of role do you see of AI or Gen AI, because these are two separate things, LLMs, when it comes to SIEM or associate security operations centers, are you seeing these technologies are already being leveraged? How is CrowdStrike leveraging it for your platforms?
Yeah, I'll start with the simplest and most basic example for generative AI. One of the things you'll find when you're doing an investigation is you have different analysts working in an investigation. They do different things. There's a very complicated timeline. People have taken different actions, and then an incident is resolved. Now, one of the challenges for enterprises is after that incident is done, how do I generate a report that is comprehensive and accurate? Generative AI, and we have it, we call our generative AI platform Charlotte. Charlotte can actually generate a full report with the timelines, with the remediations, with the incidents, with the assets involved automatically. Yeah, I call it the simplest example, but I will also say it's the most effective one for organizations because how do you learn? You learn by reading a report of how it happened the first time. What did we do? What did we do right? What did we do wrong? If you lose that data and that context, you can't get better. So a simple example of how generative AI helps people is an automated report. Now, there's other ways generative AI also helps. You can ask questions. You can say, hey, if I see this action, this attack, which kind of a threat actor uses this kind of a threat methodology? You could hear whether it's a North Korean, actor that's trying to do with their mode of operation. Is it Russian? Is it a financial actor, a threat actor? Generative AI can do all of these things. And so what I say to most people is Charlotte is a AI platform for security, but it's not an expert in just general security. It's an expert in the Falcon platform. One of the mistakes that people make is they just try to think that this will solve all of your problems, and I think that's where you get the things like hallucinations. What we have focused on is to make sure that we understand the bounds of Charlotte. And if you do that right, it'll be very, very useful. If you don't make it as general, you make it more specific, but where it's specific but it's most effective, it's going to be very, very useful. So you will see that. To your point about bringing in your own machine learning models, NVIDIA has one, which people have heard of, called Morpheus. You should be able to bring that in. You should be able to use that as a way to drive some of your analysis and incident management. And those are the kinds of things that we're making available to our customers. If you recall, when CrowdStrike started, one of its strengths was it had an API. You could do whatever you wanted through the API. And we're doing the same thing with Next Generation SIEM. You want to use our APIs to run the data through a third-party LLM or machine learning models? Go for it. You can. And these are all realities. The pace at which the innovation is taking place is quite unreal as you think about what's coming in security, which is, again, going back to your point about security has become so much more mainstream now than it was a few years ago.
Can you also talk about the role of Falcon Connection Sim in CrowdStrike's product portfolio, your strategy? And you folks also made an announcement at the recent RSA conference. Just talk about that evolution that's happening.
Yeah. So we as we looked at the challenges customers were having, one of the things we noticed was performance was a challenge with legacy SIMs. So we changed the back end of our platform, the Falcon platform, and put in a company we acquired a few years ago called Humio. We have now the product called LogScale that we sell. It's a very fast database that we put in the back end of our platform, of the Falcon platform. What it does is allows us to ingest at petabyte scale. It allows us to do real-time dashboards. Again, speed of the attack was an important part. And so we built a modern backend to the Falcon platform. That's one thing. The second was customers kept coming back to us and saying, so much of my data that goes into my SIM comes from CrowdStrike. Why can't you give me those capabilities instead of me having to take the data out from here? So we combined those two things and we announced the Falcon Connection Sim. It was well thought out because what we also said to our customers is every module you buy from CrowdStrike is ready for SIM. So we do all the correlations, we do the integrations. It's all available to you. And Mr. Customer, by the way, we won't charge you for it. So any module you buy from customers from CrowdStrike is next-gen SIM ready. So the more modules you have, the more capabilities you have. In fact, if you look at the Falcon UI now, it looks like a SIM UI. So the only thing customers now have to think about is what other third-party data do I need to bring in to enhance my SIM, to enhance my security operations. And we call it it's the AI native SOC, is the SOC of the Security Operations Center of the future. We built all of that into the Falcon platform. So the next generation SIM is going to be the OS of the AI native security operations teams. And that's really what we were set up to do. And that was the announcement at RSA, because we wanted to bring in security, speed, performance, all into one platform and make it so that customers didn't feel like they were being penalized to leverage capabilities in that platform.
Ajit, thank you so much for taking time out today to talk about CM, the whole evolution of this space and the role of CrowdStrike there. Thanks for great insight there. And I would love to chat with you and have you again on the show. Thank you.
Thanks, Swapna. Thank you very much.